blueprint wasn't just old. It was breathing, pulsing with a rhythm that seemed to seep from the paper itself. Every street in this town, every corner you turn, aligns perfectly with this 500-year-old design. But the final section, the last piece of the plan, has remained blank for centuries, until now. And as those final lines complete themselves, the air in the town grows thick with the scent of ozone and wet earth. Residents report waking to find their homes rearranged overnight, furniture shifted, walls repainted, doors leading to rooms that shouldn't exist. The ground beneath the town hums with a vibration that makes teeth ache, and water ripple in glasses left on countertops. And at the exact center of the blueprint, where all lines converge, something is beginning to push upward through the soil. This isn't urban planning. It's a 5-century-long summoning, and we're all living in the ritual circle. The lines on the wall seem to writhe. Just for a moment, the thumping reached a frantic crescendo, then vanished, leaving a void of absolute quiet. This is Millhaven, Ohio, population 8,742, a postcard-perfect slice of Middle America, where Sarah and Mark Bennett moved to escape the noise. They sought the gentle rhythm of quiet streets and the comfort of predictable days. They found a silence here that was different, not peaceful, but waiting. Mark taught history. Sarah designed structures, and together they purchased the Victorian on Elm Street. They repaired the porch swing, believing they had finally discovered their permanent sanctuary. The air held the scent of fresh paint and old wood, a tangible promise of new beginnings. But beneath that hopeful surface, the house exhaled a faint, cold dampness they couldn't quite place. The quiet endured until the drought. Last summer, the reservoir sank to a historic low, exposing cracked mudflats that smelled of rot and baked earth. That's when the children discovered it, protruding from the fissures, like a bone forcing its way through skin, a tarnished metal cylinder. The cylinder bore no markings, sealed with a weld that appeared molten yet ancient. Its surface felt unnaturally cold to the touch, like metal that had never known warmth. At the public meeting, the town council gathered to open it. A faint odor of ozone and damp earth hung in the air as they prepared the tools. Inside, suspended within a strange, inert gas, lay a single vellum document. The Millhaven Town Charter? A land deed? No, a blueprint. Not just any blueprint, but a master plan of staggering complexity, carbon dated to the early 1500s. From above, Millhaven sprawled with impossible detail. Every street and property line meticulously charted, as if by a god's hand. Unreadable notations in an alien script shimmered faintly, while the date at the corner was the true horror. The town hall, the library, every structure was perfectly placed decades before a single brick was laid. This wasn't a map. It was a blueprint, drawn with a precision that defied all logic. This plan predated the town by 3 centuries. As town historian, Mark was fascinated. As an architect, Sarah was terrified. Sarah studied a photocopy on their kitchen table, her finger tracing a line. Her voice was a taut whisper, laced with a dread that was entirely professional. "Mark, look at this." The scale was perfect, mathematically precise in every dimension. But these notations, they didn't correspond to surveying protocols or engineering standards. The measurements read like ingredients, the diagrams like preparation steps. This wasn't a blueprint for construction. It was a recipe for something unthinkable, or a ritual. Mark peered over her shoulder, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. A ritual for what? Suburban development? It's a historical marvel, honey. Some visionary's dream that, by wild coincidence, came true. Sarah's gaze locked onto a strange, recurring symbol in the blueprint's corner. A spiral, trapped within a perfect square. But coincidence has a cold touch. It started with a sound, a deep, sub-auditory thump that vibrated in your molars, only audible in the dead of night. Then, pets began to vanish without a trace, leaving behind only empty collars and silent homes. A strange metallic scent filled the air like ozone and rust, as the ground grew damp and cold to the touch. That's when the construction began, marked by heavy machinery groaning in the darkness and the scrape of digging through stone. Security footage from that night shows the quarry's playground, deserted under a moonless sky. Then, with no wind to explain it, the swings began to thrash violently back and forth. And at the site marked Node Alpha on the blueprint, something impossible happened. The ground didn't break, it yielded, allowing these monolithic stones to simply emerge, as if the earth itself was forcing them into alignment. No construction vehicles rumbled, no workers called out, just the rhythmic, subterranean thump and the steady, impossible growth. Sarah's knuckles whitened on the wheel as she passed the quarry, her face drained of color. "It's building the foundation," she whispered, the words tasting of cold iron, just like the plan shows. Phase 2. Substrate revelation. Her voice dropped to a breathless hush. "Mark, this isn't history. It's a schedule, and we're on it." Sarah became obsessed. She cross-referenced the blueprint with town records and found the symbol, the spiral in a square, carved into the foundation stone of the oldest buildings. It was also etched into the trunk of the great oak in the town square. It was a sigil, according to the blueprint's legend. A key. Mark's voice cut through the heavy air of their living room. frayed with exhaustion. "A key to what, Sarah?" He demanded, the words edged with frustration. "You're not sleeping. You're seeing patterns in everything." Sarah's voice was quiet, but carried absolute certainty. "It's a locking mechanism. The town is the lock. These nodes, the quarry, the water tower, our house, they're the pins, and the blueprint. The blueprint is the key. Turn it." The town's structures matched the blueprint, but with impossible additions. A spire where the water tower stood, a grand arch spanning Elm Street, and a complex pattern woven into the town square. Then, the blueprint began to update itself. Spectral analysis revealing faint new lines emerging on the original documents. The quarry slabs were now shown, forming a massive, unnatural arch, and the water tower twisted into a sinister, spiraling form that defied all known physics. What had been a blueprint for the past was now a real-time instruction manual for the town's transformation. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and pulverized stone as the monolithic stones arranged themselves. A deep, resonant thumping vibrated up through the ground, felt in the bones more than heard, marking each terrible alignment. But the final, unthinkable catalyst for their terror was the change that began within the very walls of their own home. Sarah unearthed their 1823 property deed, revealing a clause written in the same cryptic script that referenced an anchor point on the western hinge. Their very home was part of the design. That night, the rhythmic thumping returned, but this time it emanated from the darkness beneath their own feet. The cold, damp air carried the scent of wet earth and something metallic, like old iron. Each impact from below vibrated through the soles of their shoes, a deep, hollow percussion that spoke of something vast, stirring in the dark. Beneath the displaced soil, they discovered not earth, but a seamless metallic surface, its spiral square sigil etched with unnatural precision. Mark's voice fractured with disbelief. "It's been here the whole time." Sarah's whisper was a ghost of sound. "We didn't build on the land built around this." A deafening, resonant thump shook the foundations, and the sigil ignited with a cold, cobalt luminescence that cast stark, crawling shadows. They fled upstairs as the entire structure groaned in protest, and from their window, they witnessed the true, horrifying climax. In the town square, the earth didn't collapse. It peeled back, as though the ground itself were a curtain being drawn. The great oak's roots slithered into the soil, withdrawing to expose a colossal stone pedestal, its surface etched with forgotten glyphs. Then, a metallic shriek tore the air. The town's water tower began to twist, its iron skeleton groaning as it spiraled into the same cryptic pattern. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and wet stone, a silent proclamation that something ancient had just been awakened. Then, from the quarry's depths, a searing beam of that same spectral blue erupted, piercing the heavens to fuse the nodes. The town itself began to warp. A low, grinding groan vibrated through the soil and into the bones of every structure. Streets contorted, sliding from their familiar grids, buildings realigned with a sickening, tectonic shudder, their silhouettes now alien against the sky. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone and pulverized stone, a tangible dread settling over the newly twisted landscape. The design was subtle, yet horrifyingly deliberate, a blueprint manifesting in real time. Sarah watched, horror dawning as the realization gripped her. Her voice trembled. "It's not building a town, it's tuning an instrument." By dawn, it was over. The thumping ceased, and the light faded into a cold, silent gray. Millhaven looked almost normal, but not quite. The street angles were unnaturally sharp, and the shadows stretched far longer than they should have. A faint metallic scent of ozone hung in the air, and the stone felt clammy and cold to the touch. From somewhere unseen came a dry, skittering sound, like claws on slate. A profound, instinctual unease settled in the pit of his stomach. The new structures, the arch, the spire, the pattern in the square, stood complete, as if they'd always been there. The townsfolk walked to work, nodding at the new old architecture, their eyes slightly glazed, their memories adjusting. Mark now teaches that Millhaven has always had its unique, historic architecture. He doesn't remember the lake or the cylinder. The air carries the faint, metallic scent of rust, and every footstep on the square's new pattern echoes with a hollow, final sound. Sarah remembers everything, yet she stays, as though the very soil holds her fast. Leaving feels impossible now, a weight of iron in her chest. The town watches, a palpable gaze from darkened windows and shadowed doorways. A damp, metallic scent hangs in the air, and a distant, rhythmic scratching whispers from the alleys. The Town Hall Museum now displays the original blueprint, a larger version of the sigil. A placard beneath it reads, "Founder's Vision, C. 1823. The date has been carefully corrected, but under ultraviolet light, a different story emerges. Faint, spectral lines of the next phase bleed through the parchment like a hidden map. The blueprint revealed a deeper design under the UV light, a hidden pattern extending beyond the town's limits, connecting to neighboring settlements. A faint scent of ozone and damp paper filled the air as the lines seemed to pulse with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The cold, sticky surface of the paper hinted at something ancient waiting within this expanded grid. A low, almost imperceptible scratching sound echoed, as if the design itself was awakening. The sigil repeats endlessly, an inescapable pattern. Millhaven was constructed according to a 5-century-old design. Now complete, it has somehow tuned itself. An instrument has only one purpose, and Millhaven is ready to play. So the true terror wasn't what built Millhaven. The real horror is what or who is it waiting for now? The air carries the scent of ozone and damp earth, thick with anticipation. And from the woods, a low, rhythmic scratching begins to sync with her heartbeat. From high above, the lights of Millhaven, arranged in that ancient spiral square sigil, pulsed once with an eerie, spectral blue glow. Then, absolute darkness swallowed the town whole. A sudden metallic scent, like ozone after a storm, hung in the air. Somewhere below, a single wet footstep echoed through the unnatural stillness.